Hi there, Thak from Thak Ironworks. Welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be building a Corinthian helmet out of bronze, silicone bronze. So probably the most iconic helmet of all time. I'm thinking it's just something that really stands out and a very unique style of helmet. And something that I am very excited about making in silicone bronze. I have one here that I made many years ago out of brass, and this was made in a very rushed time. I was for some film shoot, whether it was a TV show or a commercial or something like that, and I had to make this within a day, and it was done very crudely and roughly and out of brass, as I say. So I've never really been quite happy with it. It served me well over the years, but I'd like to make something a little bit nicer, and with the silicone bronze to go with our bronze breastplate and shield, part of our continuing series of making this hoplites full kit. Now, I've lost the template from when I made this one, so I just extrapolated a template off of what I've got there, and this represents half of the helmet, obviously, and I've got the nasal coming out, putting the full nasal on the one piece here. I'm not going to cut out the eyes at this point, but this gives me a starting point to trace out onto my bronze, and then from there I'm going to have to raise this piece, and there's quite a bit of distortion that happens as this edge comes in and gets that deep depth to be able to meet to the other one. So this is our starting template. Let's begin. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing now is got my piece of silicone bronze. This is 18 gauge, by the way, or the rough equivalent of that. And so I'll be heating this up and working it over a ball to raise up that shape. Raising is different than dishing. Dishing, you're working from the inside and you stretch the metal, but it will get too thin eventually and you'll break through. With raising, you're actually thickening the metal around the edge, and I actually have to make this perimeter shorter in order to get that shape. So that's where the raising is a much more effective way to do this shaping. And I know what you're asking yourself, why am I not raising this entire helmet out of one piece? And the reason is because I'm not sure that's even possible. The archaeologists are now saying they think that the Corinthian-style helmets with that shape on there, with such an extreme shape, was cast and then worked. So cast to a basic shape and then hammered out from there. I'm not sure about that. I don't really know enough about bronze casting and if you can work it after that and how that all plays out. I just know that doing this out of two pieces is challenging enough. We will be TIG welding it together with silicone filler to create the finished helmet. So that's it. Let's begin. This is a long process. So I want to bring it up so I can see some color. I have to be quite vigilant. If you get it too hot in a coal forge like this, it's just going to disintegrate and burn away, and that's not what you want to happen. This is an expensive material, and after you got some time into it, that's a very disheartening thing to have happen. So it should be noted, I'm hitting like this, where I'm not actually hitting the ball or pinching the metal between it. I'm actually pushing, kind of coaxing it against the ball there, pushing it down, and then slowly, incrementally, you're able to form it around that shape. All right, so we're about a little more than an hour into the process. I've done 2 passes with the raising, and now just checking the length of this edge here, which, as I said, in raising, we have to shrink this down. This length has to get shorter. So in measuring my template, I measured from here to here, 32 inches, and then in doing this one, we're at 28 and 3/4, 28 and a half. So we've lost over 3 inches in length in there, so we're going in the right direction. I'm not sure if you can see sideways there. We've got a fair bit of depth there, but we're halfway. Maybe we still have to get quite a bit more depth coming out of here. So I'm gonna go back and starting in the center, do another pass, pushing this out and raising that up. So we're pushing the metal in and shortening and thickening this edge microscopically, but incrementally it will get a little bit thicker in here as this shortens up. This is subtle stuff, kids. All right, so pass number 4, I just did a measurement there and I'm just over 26 inches, which means I'm at my appropriate length for this edge now. So it is officially rough formed. You can see the shape is kind of there. So now what happens is we'll move to the shot bag and start dishing from the inside and just refining this shape. There's a long way to go still. All right, so just checking with my gauge here. The parent stock, what I got from the mill, is 18. You won't be able to see the numbers probably on that, but that's 18 gauge. And then as I come across to here and try various places, I can get 17 there. So microscopically, it has gotten a little bit thicker. You can also notice that the edge is corrugated, kind of like a bottle cap welded over there. And when I get out to the very edge there, I'm very light on my hammer blow, so I'm not dishing that out and stretching that area, undoing what I'm trying to do by shrinking this edge here. So I kind of leave that little waver there. This will be trimmed anyway. Now working from the inside, I'll be able to kind of dish out a little bit to meet that. So that is the first part of this process. Now more shaping. I've got it roughly dished to shape now. I've left the bottom is flaring out roughly to where it needs to be. So I've just taken a little time and I've drawn on the line for the ridge here. I've drawn several lines trying to figure out where I aesthetically would like that dropping in there. And I think I've got that one figured out now. So I'm going to do that. I've also got the eyes and the ear. I've decided to do a cutout for the ear. I've seen a couple helmets like that. I kind of like the effect of that. So I've just got them placed in there while I do the ridge, and then I'm going to have to redefine where exactly I'm doing all that. Let's begin. So I've rough formed the ridge now. The overall shape is there. It's work hardened quite a bit, so I'm going to go over to the forge and heat it up and anneal the whole thing. Then I'll come back and start fine tuning this shape, and then I will start working on the eye and ear and raising out those areas. Okay, so I have got it shaped here, and what I've done is taken my template, figured out where the eye holes are going to go. That is the inside line, and then I've drawn another line inside of that, which will be the actual ridge, which is I'm going to start forming that over the stake. Try to do that from the outside, and then I'll have to go in and punch it out. This is going to be a long and fiddly process. As you can see, I'm going around the eye and all the way up around the ear. I think that will look quite fetching. All right, so I've done a couple passes with my raised ridges here. Now what I'm doing is redrawing in where I'm going to cut out to create the openings here. Obviously, I did all that raising before I cut that out. Otherwise, things tend to really just warp and distort. It's much easier to hold things in place, putting the ridges in before you take the eyes out. Then also, you can make it conform to what you actually do with the ridge as opposed to trying to cut it out and do the ridge after, which is trickier. So this tends to be a better way for several reasons. So different ways that you could cut this out. You could just drill a series of holes and go in with the die grinder. I think what I'll do is go old school and just get a cold chisel, put it over the ball and just start working a line here, and then I'll have to go in and clean it up with some files, maybe the die grinder or something like that. All right, so I just got it on the ball there, no pun intended, and I'm starting to do a chisel mark on the inside of my line. I will then file up to that. Right now I'm just creating this ridge here. I'm trying not to punch right through where I'm gonna put scarring on my ball there. I don't want to do that. So I'm just gonna go fairly deep, and then I'll have to go from the inside and do the same thing. So awkward process. All right, so time has elapsed and we're finally back to this project here again. So we had the one side, and I have gone ahead and made the other half here and got them mating together nicely. And here's how I did it. So once I had this piece how I felt it should be, I made up a little cutout that fit onto the profile there, and then use that on the other piece to get it close. That takes you so far, but then because there's so many different changes in there, I had a few of them, but you have to really look at the two pieces together and then balance out anomalies and try to just make everything from a bunch of different angles balance out. Part of doing that is actually riveting the piece together using a piece of steel, and I will put my two pieces together now to show you that. You could use clecos and something like this, but because the multiple times having this bolted together and banging on it and stuff like that, the holes got reamed out to the point that they don't actually hold the cleco. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then don't worry about it, it doesn't matter. So I've got 3/16 bolts here. I'm just gonna temporarily hold it together using that. So I'm obviously making the helmet out of two pieces, and I think some of the earlier Greek helmets were made out of two or more pieces where they actually would form out the halves or whatever and then riveted them together, very much like what I would be doing here. The later Corinthian-style helmets were made out of one piece. And this is where you enter into kind of a debate that is going on and how they were actually made. The general consensus is that they were raised from a single sheet of bronze, and then brought the whole shape brought down and formed from a single piece, hammered out. A very time-consuming process, very laborious, but that is the general consensus how they were made. Seems to be a theory now that they were perhaps partially cast, and I don't know, maybe, and then hammered to fit, like they would finish hammering to shape after they were partially cast. The way I'm understanding it from what I read in this article was that it was kind of a bell shape that would be smaller and thicker than the helmet, the finished helmet, and then it would be hammered out over the stakes to thin it out and to finish the shape off and bring it to the final finished shape. In doing so, you could leave areas like the nasal thicker and around the brow ridge thicker, so the whole brow would be thicker and then thinner in here, which what the historical forensic evidence seems to suggest. Same thing could be done with raising it from a single sheet, in that the sheet wouldn't start out at the finished thickness, it would be something thicker than that. All this stuff, I knew going into this that I did not have the time to devote to anything like that, and I knew right from the start, for my purposes, for my helmet and for my video, I was going to make this out of 2 pieces welded together. I actually read in one article, I never kept a source on that, I'm kind of curious about it. They said that they were made of several pieces welded together, and I'm thinking that person really probably didn't understand the process, because I'm not sure in a historical sense how you would be able to do such a thing. I have done brazing in the forge with heavier pieces of steel, but to do something as light as a helmet, I'm not convinced that that is really a practical thing. Although I've also read that the statues that they made, the Greek statues that were cast in bronze, the helmets, or the heads, were actually usually a separate piece that was brazed on after. And once again, I'm questioning on how they were able to get fire or heat where you need it without melting or destroying what you're working on, to get the sufficient heat to the area and do that without the use of a torch. I don't know. Obviously we need some more research on that. I'm very interested in it, but today we're just making this out of 2 pieces. We are going to be TIG welding this together using a silicone bronze rod. Okay, so I've got this over the stake here with the 2 pieces bolted together, and this allows me to get in and just kind of make these pieces together over top of each other there, one over top of the other, and then mate things together quite nicely in anticipation for welding this together. I just did this little design here. It just kind of presented itself as I was working on it. I did this, the overall shape of this helmet I did as one of more of the earlier Corinthian-style helmets. It's shorter in the face here. It doesn't have that long cheek guards, or neck guards, I guess you would call them. I went for the shorter ones there. I also went for larger openings here, and I made for a shallower dome for the top of it as well, which didn't leave me a lot of space in there. A lot of the really iconic or most common style that you always see of the Corinthian helmet has that extra brow ridge in there. Didn't really have room for that in the shortness of how I did this one. And then again, I said this is all kind of earlier style. Then I went and did the ear scoops, which is like the other end of the spectrum, much later in the Corinthian helmet design. So this helmet may be a bit of a bastardization, although I've seen a lot of different versions, but I'm kind of going early, like pre, I don't know, 600 BCE, and this is more like 400, somewhere there, 450, something like that. Anyway, I'm looking at this from a sculptural point of view, and I'm just kind of playing with the design, not too married to making one historically accurate version that I'm seeing. I'm not imitating one. I'm kind of taking different aspects from a few different designs and just seeing what I come up with here. All right, so I've ground the welds and I've hammered over the top here to try to blend everything in, get it all smoothed out. I had a lot of fun reworking this front part here. There's some distortions. Haven't quite figured it all out yet, but I think we've got enough that we can finish this off for the purposes of this video. In a future video, by the way, I will be doing the crest for this, and then we will be padding it and all that stuff. But for today, we would just want to finish this video, get a helmet for you. So what I'm going to do now is paint this whole thing down with gun blue, and then we will get some sort of finish happening here. So I've gun blued it, and then I put it in water to neutralize the acid. And while it's still wet, I'm going to grab some steel wool here and start finishing it off as we've been doing the other pieces in this hoplite build. The breastplate, for example. Put a mask on here. So if you see my breastplate video, you notice on that one As far as finish, I didn't grind it to a nice smooth mirror finish or anything like that. I left the hammer marks in. So in keeping with that whole theme, that's what I am doing here. I like the, I don't know, tool mark, the texture of that. To me, as a maker and as a sculptor, I just find that very aesthetically pleasing. So that's why I'm doing it. Also saves me a lot of time grinding. And there we have it. I still want to do a little bit of touch up on this, but I will be, in a future video, making a crest for this. So I'm going to do a nice reposade piece for that. And at that time, I want to do some finish work. I need to do a little bit of tweaking in here and everything, get that finished up. But you get the idea. We've got our basic helmet here, and you see if I can put it on my head. It fits and everything. Like I said, I went with the earlier period with a shorter face there. I think if I do it again, I'd like to do the later Corinthian with the longer face guard in there. I just didn't want something that interfered when I'm wearing my breastplate and scratching that all up. So I'm very happy with the design here. I think it came out quite nice. As I said earlier in the video, this is probably the most iconic design as far as a helmet. And many people have pointed out that it has a very phallic sort of shape. Kind of looks like a dickhead. Anyway, all that aside, I had a good time making this, and I would like to do more of this stuff. As I stated, this is not a 100% historically accurate build, obviously, in welding the pieces together, and I would like to experiment more with that in future videos. And I found from doing the rest of our hoplite kit, the build for this video series, especially the Greek shield, get a lot of comments on that, and I get a lot of people weighing in saying, well, that's not historically accurate, you should have done it this way, you should have done it that way. And I think I'm at the point now where I'd like to do a follow-up video for the shield, and then probably for the breastplate and helmet after my build, which is not historically 100% accurate, where we have some other experts weigh in. And by experts, I mean people that can get me some information where you can cite sources, point me at least in the direction of some books and some articles and stuff like that, and see if we can't build a more academic kind of research. And I make a follow-up video for each of the videos for these builds. Like, these builds kind of represent a tutorial for people who might be interested in doing this, but I also realize that there is a lot of historian or would-be historians out there that want to learn this just to see how things are put together and from a historical standpoint. And I think in my Greek shield video, I called you guys techno nerds, and I've got a little bit of flack for that. Hopefully you're understanding that by saying that I'm grouping myself within that category as well. And I am realizing that there is a small segment of the people out there that are really hardcore and they want to learn everything that there is to know about Greek armor. I'm approaching this from my experience in making armor, mostly for the film industry over the years, and really I'm coming in from a sculptor's standpoint. That's the way I see myself, and I'm really doing this from an aesthetic sort of prerogative. However, having said that, now that as I do this, I'm becoming more and more interested in the historical aspect and how was this done? How was it raised from a single sheet of steel? Was it a block that starts out and was able to be shaped? Last minute addition to this video, while we are doing the final edit. Eric is just in the process of getting the final edit together, the guy behind the camera there. Last week, in thinking about doing traditional helmets out of one piece, I stumbled across one of Slava's videos. Slava has the channel, it's World of Armor, Armor Smith, guy from the Ukraine. A very talented smith. I just love his work, and his channel is really good. He does really nice videos, good sense of humor, but really good workmanship. So we'll do a link here. So go here or here, wherever Eric's going to end up putting this. Check out that video. Check out his channel. He does really good stuff. Anyway, he was talking about making a helmet and shows it in this particular video out of a block of steel, starting with a block of steel, pounding that out, and actually hot dishing that. So I was pretty intrigued by that because I've been thinking about that for many years, and I've just never gotten around to trying that experiment. So I had a couple of these things sitting around, a 6-inch disc, 1/4 inch thick. So I took that and I thinned out the edges, brought them down to about 1/16 of an inch, and then I took a ball peen hammer I had and I modified it, stretched it out, made this gooseneck hammer here, and started hot hot dishing it into a hollow form here, and in 4 hours I was able to achieve this, which is remarkable speed for that sort of thing. And I got to this point, and actually my hammer was starting to bottom out. I could go further with this, but I think it proved its experiment. I found that this was a pretty exciting process, that I was able to quickly achieve a shape like this, and I think it lends itself well to doing a full Corinthian-style helmet out of a chunk of bronze, and being able to hot dish that out much quicker than taking a thin sheet and raising that, which is a much more complex process. So this allowed me to achieve this shape fairly quickly, and I think it has a lot of potential. Very intriguing experiment, and I plan to do more experiments in the future. We will be having videos where the next one I'll do is a single piece helmet, maybe a Viking style helmet out of steel. So stick around, comments, I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of them, so I hope to hear from you. You're going to see the crest, you're going to see the rest of the outfit coming together in upcoming videos. So that's it for right now. I will see you soon. Thak out. See ya!